Greetings, Internet faithful. This is some guy named Rob from On Your Marks Wrestling, and this is Rob Recaps 205 Live for June the 5th, 2018. We start with a recap of last week's, let's face it, spectacular pay-per-view worthy match between Cedric Alexander and Buddy Murphy for the Cruiserweight Championship. We then get a segue into what is happening tonight with Drake Maverick, where the future starts tonight and who will be the next contender for the title. And we run down the card, which will be Brian Kendrick and versus Lince Dorado. We're also going to get a match between Buddy Murphy and Mustafa Ali, which could have championship contender implications. I don't know if that's absolutely confirmed, but it's definitely implied that the winner of this match will definitely be looked upon very favorably. So we kick off the show with the Brian Kendrick, in case you were worried about getting an imitation unlicensed Brian Kendrick, versus Lince Dorado. Kendrick is accompanied to the ring by Drew Gulak, who, okay, this is brilliant. He brings an entire pamphlet to the announcer table about everything he hates about lucha wrestling, and proceeds to read the pamphlet during the match, which I think was fantastic. Jack Gallagher is nowhere to be found. It's kind of hand-waved away with Family Matters, so I'm not sure if that's legit or if that's just something in story. But there's no actual interference from Jack Gallagher at all in this match. The reasoning given by Drew Gulak as to why he's at ringside is because he does not trust the luchadors to not interfere in the match on behalf of Dorado. As for the match itself, I would say it was okay. If it wasn't really like highlight worthy, it was there. It passed the time inoffensively. It was a good match, but maybe just one notch above good, sort of very slightly above average. It was sort of more interesting to see in storyline why Drew Gulak is suddenly aligning himself with Jack Gallagher and Brian Kendrick. Also, there was the post-match beatdown by Drew Gulak on all three members of the Lucha House Party after Dorado hit the Golden Rewind for the win. So it was a clean finish to the match in spite of some distraction / interference type of stuff from Gulak. But mostly this is going to be for storyline. I have a feeling that there's going to be sort of a six-man storyline going forward from here, but we'll have to see what they're doing with this. This is, whatever it is, they've got it on a bit of a slow boil, so we'll see where they're taking it. It's not quite Bayley Sasha Banks levels, because things are actually happening, but we'll see what comes of this. So next up, we get TJP versus Jobber of the Week, Ryan King, who's dressed like a cowboy because Texas. This match was wholly unremarkable, other than the fact that TJP basically laid out Ryan King with one shot, went to the timekeeper's area, picked up a microphone, and then basically cut a promo while he was wrestling, which normally is pretty entertaining. TJP unfortunately has the charisma of a wet paper bag that's been soaked in urine, so the crowd really didn't care. Even the announcers had a hard time really selling the fact that he may just leave 205 Live to go to Raw or SmackDown or NXT, as TJP was sort of hinting towards during his promos, and mostly because if he were on the main roster shows at least, he would be destroyed by everybody. Because of the size differential. I don't think he even breaks 200 pounds. And then you've got the whole thing of, on NXT, there's really no room for him, maybe in a program against Ricochet, but even then, no one really cared. And keep in mind, he's making all of these threats and saying all these things while he is wrestling an opponent. So he's basically putting on a signature move, like a submission hold, kind of holding it, keeping it on the edge of submission just to sort of be able to sit and talk to the audience. Really, no one was engaged. No one booed, no one cheered, no one cared. There was literally zero reaction. Pretty much the same as there was last week when he wrestled a jobber, and there was absolutely no reaction whatsoever to the fact that he was saying that he's not getting a fair deal and he might leave. No surprise, TJP wins the match with a modified cloverleaf submission. He lets go of the hold, and the crowd basically lets TJP walk away to absolutely no fanfare whatsoever. Basically, this entire segment put the crowd to sleep. Thankfully, our next match, which is Mustafa Ali versus Buddy Murphy, woke the crowd up in a pretty big hurry. I liked the opening exchange of this match where Mustafa Ali would hit Buddy Murphy with a chop to the chest, and Murphy would just look at him like, okay, I'm sorry, what was that? There was literally no selling whatsoever. which I thought was actually kind of cool because this isn't like a 200-pound guy chopping a 400-pound guy and the 400-pounder no selling. These guys are basically within about 20 pounds of each other. So, they're fairly comparable in terms of their strength and everything. This is just sort of the strength of will of Buddy Murphy being so pissed off that he did not win the Cruiserweight Championship that he's just going to refuse to feel pain. And I actually really like that. I thought that was a cool moment for Murphy. Unsurprisingly, following the no-sell of Mustafa Ali's offense, Buddy Murphy does take control, works on the midsection of Mustafa Ali for quite a while, actually. This match was rather lengthy, and I think it was kind of nice to see. I like that they're making these main event matches a little longer. Worked over on the ribs, especially. Lots of near falls, although you knew the match wasn't going to end anytime at that point, but it did wake the crowd up a little bit. Mustafa Ali kind of changes direction of the match with a reverse Hurricane Rana, which, oh my god, looked to be like, that looked insane. And in slow motion, it still looked like it could have legitimately ended Buddy Murphy's career. That's how kind of dangerous. I don't want to say dangerous because I know these guys are pros. They've probably done this spot a bunch of times before. But oh my god, that reverse Hurricane Rana looked like it could have very, very easily gone very, very wrong for Buddy Murphy. But he took it like a pro. And they kept going. This led to sort of the I don't want to say the climax of the match, but it really started to prompt the build where both men really started going at each other, where they would trade punches and forearm shots and kicks, and each man staggering the other, but not quite putting them down enough. We get toward the final build where Mustafa Ali hits a sort of a springboard Hurricane Rana onto the floor on Buddy Murphy and gets him back in the ring and goes for the 054, but completely out of nowhere comes Hideo Itami to attack Mustafa Ali while he's perched on the top rope. We get a DQ finish, and then Itami beats down on Mustafa Ali for a couple of minutes, and then goes and hits that beautiful delayed drop kick on Buddy Murphy, who's laid out in the corner. So Itami took out everybody. And we get a whole bunch of ring officials come out to escort Itami as he's screaming, "Respect me, respect me." And the show goes off the air with Itami slowly making his way to the back with a smirk on his face. Now, I was a little bit mixed about this match because at first it looked like they were trying to recreate the lightning in a bottle type of match quality that you had with Cedric Alexander versus Buddy Murphy from the previous week, because that was a work of genius. That match was beautiful from beginning to end, and it almost felt like they were trying to recreate that type of atmosphere, that type of big pay-per-view match feel on 205 Live. Thankfully, about the time that they did the reverse Hurricane Rana and then started doing the trading of blows and everything, including some really great spots, like there was an X Factor done on the ring apron. Buddy Murphy had some really devastating moves, hit some really devastating moves, including one which looked like it was going to be a superplex, but ended up being sort of a gutbuster across the top turnbuckle, which also looked pretty bad. I don't know if that was a botch or if that was meant to really look like. Yeah, it just looked awkward and it looked really painful, which I know is supposed to be the point, but I'm not sure if it was supposed to look quite like that. But to make a short story long, is once the match sort of got into its own sort of gear, it really kind of came into its own, which was nice. I'm a little bit conflicted on the DQ finish. I'm not sure if I would have wanted to see it after the bell, after the match had definitively ended, but I guess they didn't want Buddy Murphy to take 2 losses in a row, and they didn't want Mustafa Ali to take 2 losses in a row to Buddy Murphy, because the last time they met, Buddy Murphy beat Mustafa Ali pretty handily. And it was a pretty dominating match by Buddy Murphy. So I guess this was to protect them as best as they could. It's going to be interesting to see what Itami is going to do on 205 Live, especially since Buddy Murphy has kind of established himself as the resident badass of the roster, and now you have Itami coming in to basically challenge him as the resident badass who wants to be respected by everybody. So I'm not sure if they're going to bother turning Buddy Murphy face. I don't think they will, but it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Anyway, very good show. I was very entertained by the whole thing. I thought it, as usual, it basically buries Raw and makes SmackDown look fairly pedestrian, as it tends to. And I don't know why the writers for 205 Live can't, I don't know why they can't borrow some of that sort of writing magic and put it onto the main roster shows and make those main roster shows a little bit more interesting. But anyway, that's another story for another day. And until next time, take it easy.